What if a single promise could change a child's life forever? In a mansion of wealth, rules, and secrets, one woman's love becomes the spark that defies fear, prejudice, and even death itself. This is the story of courage, faith, and a bond stronger than any obstacle. Stay with us as we uncover this incredible tale. Aisha Bennett stepped onto the marble steps of the Montero mansion just as the first rays of dawn brushed the sky. Her heart thumped with a mixture of anticipation and nervous excitement. Today marked her first day as the nanny to little Elena Montero, the 2-year-old daughter of Adrian Montero, a man whose wealth and reputation were spoken about in whispers throughout the city. The mansion itself was intimidating, a vast palace of crystal chandeliers that sparkled like frozen waterfalls, Persian rugs that swallowed footsteps in silence, and walls adorned with oil portraits that seemed to watch every move. A hush hung over the corridors, a quiet so strict it felt like it could cut through flesh, enforced by Mrs. Vargas, the housekeeper whose iron spine and piercing gaze left no room for error. Rules were etched into the air: no noise, no deviations, no personal talk. Aisha carried herself with calm determination, aware that even a small misstep could be magnified in this house of formality. When Aisha opened the nursery door, the sight of Elena took her breath away. The little girl sat on the floor, pale and fragile, her wide eyes holding a sorrow that seemed far too large for her small face. She clutched a threadbare bear so tightly it seemed to be the only tether keeping her in this world, whispering in a trembling voice, "Are you going to leave me too?" The question landed like a stone, heavy and fragile all at once. Kneeling down to meet Elena at eye level, Aisha offered a soft smile, letting her presence radiate reassurance. "I don't leave," she whispered, a promise suspended in the air, daring the mansion and its invisible rules to contradict it. In that moment, a delicate trust began to form, fragile yet unyielding, like the first green shoots of spring breaking through winter soil. Lunch arrived, placed neatly on a pristine tray: plain rice, boiled chicken, and overcooked vegetables, all carefully prepared according to the strict orders of the child's doctor. Elena pushed the plate away, her appetite stifled by grief and the coldness of her surroundings. Aisha, unfazed, hummed a lullaby her grandmother had once sung to her, a soft, flowing melody that carried a river of calm. The sound seemed to reach Elena through the fog of sorrow, coaxing her small fingers to inch toward the food. With each note, a little more warmth returned to the child's eyes, a hesitant willingness to trust again. "You sing pretty," Elena murmured between shy bites. Aisha's smile softened the lines of sadness on her own face. "Mothers who go to the sky still love loudly," she said, smoothing the child's soft curls, acknowledging grief while offering comfort. By the time the meal ended, Elena had eaten enough to sustain her tiny body, and for the first time in days, there was a flicker of life in her cheeks. Evening descended over the mansion like a slow curtain, and the chill that usually clung to its marble halls softened slightly around the nursery. Elena leaned into Aisha's shoulder, her small frame seeking warmth that had been absent for too long. Aisha cradled the child gently, feeling the fragile rhythm of her breath and the tiny heartbeat beneath the ribcage. Outside the nursery, the mansion remained a palace of wealth and rules, but inside that room, something entirely different had begun. A quiet rebellion of love and tenderness, subtle yet powerful enough to defy the frost in the corridors. The child's trust, earned in soft words and gentle songs, began to ripple outward, touching the walls, the furniture, the very air. Aisha hummed again, her voice threading through the stillness, creating a cocoon of safety where grief could breathe and hope could begin to grow. As night settled and the first stars appeared beyond the tall windows, the mansion seemed less imposing, less unyielding. Elena's small fingers traced patterns on Aisha's hands, her fragile eyes reflecting the shimmer of the moonlight. In the quiet of that first night, the foundation of a bond had been laid, one built on presence, patience, and the promise that she would never leave. The walls that had once echoed only wealth and silence now held the beginnings of connection, of trust, of emotional healing. And in that room, warmed by a lullaby and a promise, Both nanny and child found the first glimmer of a home within the vastness of the Montero mansion. The morning sunlight poured into the Montero mansion, spilling across marble floors and glinting off crystal chandeliers. But the warmth it carried could not reach the frost that still lingered in the corners. Aisha Bennett moved quietly through the halls, her steps careful, her mind already on Elena. She found the little girl curled around her threadbare bear, fingers clutching it as if it were a lifeline, eyes still shadowed by the weight of grief. "You're safe now, little star," Aisha whispered, smoothing the strands of soft hair that fell over Elena's face, her voice gentle yet firm. The mansion, with all its grandeur and strict rules, felt vast and unyielding, but in the small nursery, Aisha created a pocket of safety where love could breathe freely. The serenity of the morning was interrupted by the arrival of Estelle Montero, Elena's grandmother. From the moment she entered, the air seemed to contract, as though the house itself recognized her authority and fear. Estelle's posture was sculpted, rigid, a commanding presence that made even the staff shrink in her shadow. Her perfume was sharp, a fragrant warning of the scrutiny she would bring. When her gaze landed on Aisha, it was a slow, appraising sweep, the kind that measured worth and found it lacking. "So, you're the new nanny," she said, her voice cool and deliberate. "They said you were different. Let's hope you last longer than the others." The words, though calm in tone, carried a weight of suspicion, a judgment that made Aisha's pulse tighten, but she stood tall, replying with quiet confidence, "Yes, ma'am. I'm here to take care of Elena." Inside the nursery, the contrast between Estelle's coldness and Aisha's warmth became painfully clear. Estelle scrutinized every movement, every curl of Elena's hair, snapping at the child for minor imperfections, her words sharp as ice. Elena flinched under the pressure, shrinking in on herself, but Aisha moved with steady patience, gently brushing the little girl's tangled curls, praising their wildness and spirit. "Your curls are just like you," Aisha said softly, letting each word settle in Elena's heart. For a fleeting moment, a small spark of joy lit the child's eyes, a fragile smile that seemed to say she was seen, appreciated, and loved. Estelle's frown deepened, and a quiet tension hung between her and Aisha, a silent battle of control versus care, authority versus affection. Later, Adrian Montero returned to the mansion, his presence cautious and tentative. The grieving father had spent months navigating the emptiness left by his wife's death, unsure how to connect with the child who carried both his love and his sorrow. Aisha guided Elena toward him, coaxing a small smile from her lips, a sign that trust and hope were slowly returning. Adrian's eyes softened as he watched the interaction, noticing for the first time in weeks that his daughter's laughter was returning, delicate but real. He knelt to greet her, arms open, yet his movements were uncertain, rehearsed from a distance, unfamiliar with the ease of genuine affection. Later that evening, Elena, voice trembling with a mix of fear and sadness, whispered, "Papa doesn't love me." The words struck Aisha like shards of glass. The child had absorbed the grandmother's lies, blaming herself for her mother's death, and carrying the burden in her small frame. Aisha pulled Elena close, holding her gently yet firmly. "None of this is your fault, little one," she said, her voice calm, unwavering. "Sometimes people hurt because they don't know how to heal, but love never dies. Not your mama's, not your papa's. You are loved, always." Elena's tears soaked into Aisha's shoulder, but with each whispered promise, a seed of hope began to take root in the child's heart, a quiet defiance against the cruelty that sought to dominate her spirit. As the days passed, laughter slowly returned to the mansion. Aisha taught Elena to bake cookies, their small hands dusted with flour, giggling as they shaped each one imperfectly yet perfectly in the joy they shared. They danced barefoot across the nursery floor, twirling and spinning, letting the sound of their joy fill the once silent halls. Lullabies, sung louder than the emptiness of the mansion, carried through the corridors, a gentle rebellion against the cold formality that had ruled the house for too long. From the shadows, Estelle watched, her sharp eyes narrowing with every display of warmth and affection. To her, the laughter and care Aisha brought into the mansion was contamination, a threat to her control. She muttered quietly to Mrs. Vargas, plotting ways to regain her influence, unwilling to let the child's happiness disrupt the rigid order she had imposed. But for Aisha and Elena, each shared smile, each gentle touch, each whispered reassurance, built a fortress of love strong enough to withstand prejudice, suspicion, and the lingering shadows of grief. In a house built on wealth and rules, the quiet victories of trust, compassion, and emotional resilience began to take root, promising that the frost in the mansion's halls could eventually be softened by the warmth of care, presence, and unwavering love. The rain fell in thin, relentless sheets against the towering windows of the Montero mansion, turning the marble floors into slick mirrors of gray light. Aisha Bennett awoke before dawn, her heart uneasy, a heavy weight she could not name pressing against her chest. Something inside the house had shifted. Elena slept fitfully, murmuring through dreams that carried the echoes of fear. "It's just thunder, little star," Aisha whispered, brushing the soft curls from the child's forehead, but even as she spoke, the chill in the air felt deeper than any storm outside. The mansion, once a place of subtle warmth and growing trust, now seemed poised on the edge of confrontation, a delicate equilibrium threatened by unseen forces. By midweek, incidents began to escalate. A diamond bracelet, sparkling with understated elegance, had gone missing, followed days later by a delicate necklace. Whispers rippled through the staff like sparks across dry grass. Eyes darted suspiciously as Aisha passed. Gardeners avoided her gaze, maids muttered under their breath, and the air thickened with accusation. Estelle Montero, ever watchful, allowed the rumors to take root, her presence a shadow of doubt that gnawed at Adrian's mind. For the first time since Aisha had arrived, Adrian hesitated, glancing at the child's nanny with a question in his eyes he could not yet voice. Rumors from Aisha's past surfaced with brutal timing. A misunderstanding from a previous position was twisted into evidence of moral failing, and stories of impropriety spread among the mansion's staff and Adrian's social circles. Estelle nurtured each whisper, feeding suspicion like kindling to a fire, and soon the mansion itself seemed to conspire against Aisha. Adrien, torn between the love he saw in Aisha's gentle care and the seeds of doubt planted by his mother, confronted her formally, asking if the allegations were true. Aisha's voice was steady but edged with heartbreak. "That is not what happened," she said softly, each word weighed with truth and hurt. "I was blamed before because people wanted someone to blame. I am not that person now." Yet her words, pure as they were, could not overcome the poisoned trust Estelle had sown. That evening, Aisha packed her few belongings into a small suitcase, each folded dress a silent testament to the home she had begun to build within the mansion's walls. Before leaving, she crept into Elena's room, where the child slept clutching her bear, oblivious to the storm gathering beyond the door. Kneeling beside her, Aisha whispered, "Mommy loves you, little star, always." She pressed a gentle kiss to Elena's forehead, then slipped away into the shadows, tears threatening to betray her heart's resolve. Adrian stood at the front door, watching, a storm of doubt and fear mirrored in his eyes. "I don't want you to go," he murmured, but Aisha only replied softly, "Then stop me." He remained silent, unable to intervene, and the distance between them widened into an ache that filled the halls with absence. In the days that followed, the mansion grew hollow. Elena's laughter vanished. Meals were pushed aside untouched. The weight of loss, compounded by grief and betrayal, began to break the child's fragile body. Fever claimed her small frame, burning hotter with each passing hour. Adrien felt the sting of helplessness more acutely than any financial loss or social slight. His daughter, the center of his world, lay weakened by sorrow and separation. The realization struck him like a hammer. He had lost not just a nanny, but the only person capable of healing Elena's heart, and in doing so, he had allowed a shadow to replace love with suspicion. Miles away, Aisha felt a pull in her chest, a magnetic tug she could not ignore. She ran through the rain, soaked to the bone, guided by intuition and the wisdom of Dona Inés, a spiritual guide who had once helped her recognize the unseen gifts within herself. The gift of healing, long dormant and quiet, awakened in response to love's call. She raced through the storm, her heart focused on the child who needed her most, ignoring the cold, the mud, and the relentless sheets of rain. When she arrived at Hospital San Martin, security blocked her path. "Family only," a guard said, voice firm but helpless to the urgency in Aisha's eyes. "I am her family," she pleaded, tears cutting through the rain on her face. Adrian appeared then, pale, unshaven, exhausted. But when their eyes met, something unspoken passed between them, a recognition that love and presence mattered more than accusation. Without another word, he led her to the ICU. Inside, Elena lay frail and trembling, monitors beeping in urgent rhythm. Her tiny hand reached for the figure she knew, whispering, "Mommy, Aisha." Aisha took her hand, her voice soft, steady, and full of promise. "I'm here, little star. I promised I wouldn't leave." As she placed her hands over Elena's chest, warmth flowed from her, an invisible current of faith and love that pulsed through the room. Through the night, she sang lullabies, prayed quietly, and remained steadfast, unwavering in presence and devotion. By dawn, the monitor's beeping shifted. Her fever broke. Her breathing steadied, and the doctors, observing in disbelief, whispered of the impossible. Adrienne, watching the transformation, felt a tremor of revelation. Aisha had not merely saved his daughter, she had reminded him of the power of love, trust, and presence, proving that wealth, suspicion, and prejudice were powerless in the face of devotion. In that hospital room drenched by storm and tears, a miracle unfolded, born not from science, but from a promise kept, a gift shared, and the unyielding force of love. Sunlight spilled through the grand windows of the Montero mansion for the first time in months, casting golden pools on the marble floors that had once echoed only with silence. Elena's laughter rang clear and bright, a sound that had been absent for far too long, filling every corner with warmth and life. She ran barefoot through the halls, her curls bouncing with each joyful step, her small hands reaching for the hands of the woman who had never abandoned her. Aisha Bennett, standing in the nursery doorway, watched her with a soft smile, the weight of worry finally lifted from her shoulders. The little star, fragile yet resilient, had returned to herself, and with her, the heart of the mansion began to beat again. Adrian Montero, once a man defined by grief and distant authority, had begun to embrace fatherhood fully. He arrived at the breakfast table earlier than usual, learning the small, intimate rhythms of family life, braiding Elena's curls with patience, flipping pancakes shaped like stars, reading bedtime stories without distraction. The stiffness that had defined his presence melted away as he laughed with his daughter, each smile a reminder that presence mattered more than wealth, that love required action, not just sentiment. In these simple, tender moments, Adrienne discovered a new kind of power, the power to nurture, to care, and to truly see the child he loved so fiercely. Estelle Montero, ever poised and observant, watched the transformation with a mixture of disbelief and quiet rage. Her authority, once unchallenged, now felt diminished in the face of the warmth and devotion Aisha had brought to the household. From her vantage on the second-floor balcony, she observed Adrian laughing with his daughter, Elena calling Aisha "Mommy," and the staff moving freely, their fear replaced by respect and genuine affection. Her voice, usually sharp and unyielding, carried a warning as she approached the kitchen one morning, her words measured but edged with menace. "Storms always come after calm," she said. Aisha, serene and steady, did not flinch. "Then I'll hold the umbrella," she replied, her voice soft yet unbreakable, signaling that no threat could sway her commitment to love and family. Despite whispers of scandal circulating through the city's upper circles, tales of a billionaire falling for his nanny, Aisha remained unmoved. Adrienne, fully aware of the stakes and the judgment of society, stood firmly by her side, defending her with unwavering clarity. "She saved our daughter's life," he told anyone who doubted, his voice resolute. "She saved me too. She is our family." The mansion, once ruled by whispers and suspicion, now thrummed with loyalty, gratitude, and the profound understanding that love and integrity could withstand both gossip and prejudice. The mansion itself seemed to transform along with its inhabitants. The marble halls, once cold and forbidding, now reflected laughter and the warmth of shared moments. Meals were prepared with music and joy, not duty. The nursery became a sanctuary of learning, play, and comfort. Every corner held a memory of small victories. Aisha coaxing a smile from Elena, Adrienne reading stories while learning to soften the weight of his own grief. The staff watching with awe as true care reshaped the environment around them. In this home, love became visible, tangible, and undeniable, touching every person who entered its doors. Eventually, Estelle's pride gave way to reflection. The woman who had once wielded fear like a weapon found herself confronting the consequences of her actions. One golden afternoon, she approached Aisha in the garden, her once imposing presence softened by humility. "Aisha," she began, voice quiet and unsteady, "I came to say I'm sorry. For everything. For the pain, the lies, the times I nearly destroyed what you brought back to this family." Aisha studied her, recognizing the genuine contrition behind the carefully chosen words. After a long moment, she smiled gently. "We all lose our way sometimes, Mrs. Montero. What matters is finding the road back." Tears welled in Estelle's eyes, a rare vulnerability breaking through decades of pride. "You gave me back my family," she whispered, "and I almost took it from you." Elena, delighted by the reunion, ran toward them, her laughter threading through the garden as Estelle bent to hug her granddaughter, hands trembling but warm. In that moment, Aisha felt a profound sense of peace, not because justice had been served, but because love had healed what anger and fear could not. Evenings in the mansion became celebrations of presence, of care, and of choice. Aisha tucked Elena into bed, Adrienne lingering at the doorway, watching the woman who had transformed their lives. "You've changed everything," he murmured, voice heavy with awe. "No," she replied softly, "love did." In the weeks and months that followed, the mansion thrived, laughter echoing where silence once ruled, warmth replacing rigidity, and joy quietly claiming the spaces once dominated by fear. The family, forged through trials and strengthened by forgiveness, grew together, each member learning that true love is not about perfection, but about staying, showing up and choosing compassion over pride. The mansion, once a palace of control and distance, had become a home. Its walls reflected laughter, its floors bore the imprint of dancing feet, and its air carried the sense of cooking, care, and shared life. Presence, forgiveness, and unwavering devotion had reshaped not just the family, but the very essence of the place. And as sunlight continued to stream through the windows, Aisha, Adrienne, and Elena embraced the truth that love, chosen every day, could resurrect even the coldest hearts, transform the most rigid of rules, and turn strangers into family.